Good morning, Super Controllers, and thank you for joining us this morning to talk about Airbnb and how you can make the most of our super integration with Airbnb and possibly get yourself some more bookings. So my name is Kerry.
And my name's Naomi.
Basically, the flow of this morning will start with Naomi taking you through some slides to show you what we're going to go through this morning. I'll do a short introduction and then Naomi will take you through some of the basics of the integration and how to get the most out of your listings. And then we'll do a roundup with some questions at the end.
Okay, great. Okay, so today we're going to talk about some of the property setup questions that we have in support and how you can set things up in SuperControl to pull through to Airbnb. And we'll touch on the importance of how to become a super host as well, so importance of reviews and interacting with your guests. And anything that we talk about setup wise, you can always go to our help centre, which is help.supercontrol.co.uk. And then we have someone on hand that's answering questions during the webinar. Lavinia is going to be on hand to help us answer your questions as well.
Yeah, so any questions you have, don't feel as though you need to wait till the end. Use the chat or the questions tab in your webinar software there and ask any questions, and Lavinia will be answering those throughout, and myself and Naomi will get a couple of questions answered live at the end as well.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Airbnb is a fantastic integration we have. It's a two-way integration, and Naomi will go through some more of that and some more of the basics round about kind of like the practical fundamentals of what you need to do to get the most out of the integration. But just to kind of, as an introduction, I thought it would be quite nice to share some stats with you so that we can kind of debunk some of the myths around about what type of bookings you will be getting on Airbnb. So Airbnb did start as a platform just for people to kind of share spare rooms and spare beds, but it has definitely evolved over the last few years, and there's a lot of more exclusive properties on there. So vacation rentals are very prominent on the site, and a lot of them are very high quality luxury vacation rentals on there as well. So it's definitely not just the rooms anymore that they focus on. So it's great for super control clients to be on there. Out of some of the channels, it does have a very low commission when stacked against some of the other channels on there. Depending on which cancellation policy you choose, your typical commission would be between 5 and 7%, which makes it a great platform to get bookings through because you're not giving away that much commission on there. So it is fantastic for that type of thing. So on to more what you can kind of expect from the actual bookings on Airbnb. The one thing that Airbnb is fantastic for is filling your last minute availability. So versus kind of normal non-Airbnb bookings, Airbnb bookings typically have a lead time of 43 days, which is actually quite short. So you're kind of looking at about 6 weeks there. Versus your other bookings, so non-Airbnb bookings, which is around about 103 days. So it's fantastic to get your properties on Airbnb to book those last minute dates. So don't worry about booking that you're maybe not getting bookings further in advance, but it's fantastic if you've got any of last minute availability, especially in things like your shoulder season or for things availability that you haven't quite booked up yet. The other thing about Airbnb is flexible start days. So against normal other non-Airbnb bookings, Airbnb are traditional. They don't always start on the traditional start days. So when we look at our stats, we see that non-Airbnb bookings can kind of start on quite traditional start days of those Mondays and Fridays, and sort of there's definitely peaks round about there. But the Airbnb bookings definitely are a lot flatter, so they're not more likely to start on these Mondays or Fridays. They can start across the board. So flexible start days can definitely help you get bookings on Airbnb, and it's definitely something that you can think about and contact us if you'd like to talk about that. The other thing as well is, I know a lot of people who list on Airbnb can be quite worried about that they'll maybe get a lot of one-night bookings. You shouldn't be worried about that at all, because that's something that you can limit through the integration. So you just wouldn't set yourself up as available for one night. But it is worth noting that the most popular, through our stats, the most popular number of nights we see for Airbnb is 2 or 3 nights. So you're less likely to get those full week bookings that you will traditionally see through your website or through maybe other channels. But Airbnb, you are more likely to get those 2 and 3 night bookings. So it is a good way of kind of filling those stop gaps in between your bookings that you might see on your coming through from your direct bookings. So that's a little bit round about the stats and what you're would maybe see if you were to list on Airbnb, what you would see coming through. Obviously that is not going to be for everybody, and that's not a kind of set rule of thumb, but that's what the kind of stats are telling us across what we see for the Airbnb integration.
That's great. Thanks, Kerry. So now I'm going to sort of show you bits and pieces within your SuperControl account. So just bear with me as I switch screens. So the first thing is really where it is. So integrations, channel manager, and integration international. And it's right up there, first one you see, and in here. So once you've added your property, then you can go into this screen, and what it will do is it will start off with connecting with your Airbnb login details, which on the help center it's got a really good guide to talk you through it. So you can see that we've actually got a property in progress. So all I've done is click start down here, and then you can see there's a nice timeline which will show you exactly how far along the integration you are. So in here, there's 2 things I want to touch on. One is the Airbnb settings page. So this is really where you're going to set different things that are going to go across to Airbnb. One of the common questions that we get asked in support is about pricing. At the moment, the pricing is not what we call length of stay, which we commonly refer to as LOS.
Yeah.
And this means that the price planner does not pull through to Airbnb in the same way as you would have on other integrations. And so it's based on a setting from the price planner, and there is a calculation that goes across, and this is how it's pulled through into Airbnb as something called a long stay discount. We are aware of this, and the developers are working really, really hard, and we hope to have this rectified by the end of the year. So there's some testing going on right now, which is great. So in the settings page, you can choose to use your weekend prices or weekday prices to base that calculation on. Another thing just to mention in here is an uplift, which is you can add on a percentage to your pricing, which will pull through to Airbnb to adjust the pricing for the guest to book, and a cleaning fee as well if you're covering that too. So there's really a couple of things within the property settings that are really important. So if I'm just going to load up into here, and it's Buttermilk Cottage that we're going to have a look at. So you can click go, and then web details. So this is really where we're going to go to the Airbnb information page for this property, and you'll be able to see the different sections that it's going to pull through. So in here you have something called amenities. One of the things about the Airbnb integration is that there's a limit of 5 amenities that have to be connected with this property. So if you were to go to properties, and then we call it search variables, so you can add or edit a search variable and actually map it to an Airbnb similar rating. And so for example, we've got hangers, so and we've got different things. So you can see hangers is here. I've set up the search variable in here, and then all I would need to do is tick a box. So you can see number of bedrooms, lots of different facilities, and I've got the coffee maker, and I had hangers just here, and I would be able to click here and save, and then this would pull through. So this would be showing as one of the amenities for this property.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that Airbnb do put quite a lot of stock in their amenities. So Naomi touched upon there is a minimum of 5, but that is, don't just do 5. I mean, literally, if you have anything on this list of amenities, tick them, because they have quite a lot of data around about just how much amenities can sway guest booking patterns. So it might seem quite insignificant, or you would think that it's quite common for them to be included. Just tick them if you have them, because it's really important.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing that we sort of encourage is to have really great photos taken of the property. So if you're by a beach or you've got some great parkland near you, as you can see, I've added a couple in here, but we have seen too many times having various photos, and actually selling points are your location. So and all you would need to do is tick these, and they would pull through to Airbnb. One of the things about Airbnb photos we've noticed is that the main default photo for a property can be the bathroom, which is obviously off-putting to guests. So all you would need to do would be to go to the photos section in your property and tick this box here, which is your default photo. So this means the search result photo for this property would pull through to Airbnb.
Yeah, because even though it's really important to have a photo of your bathroom, I don't think it's going to do you any favours in the search results.
That's right. And then the last thing that we wanted to touch on was really about description, and a description can make or break for a guest booking. So we've actually copied a description of our property, which is for a client of ours who was one of the first SuperControl integration clients, and they went from to a Superhost listing within 4 months, because they actually did had great photos, they had a great description. So obviously they're talking about views across a beach and a bay, so that's going to be a really big pull factor.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also worth noting as well that try and include everything in your description, but don't have it too long, because typically the guests will only read the first kind of few lines before skipping on to the next property or making a decision in their mind. So definitely get your description great and get all the information that you need to get across, or all your selling points, in the first few sentences.
And the other thing that made them such a great Superhost was that they interacted with their guests.
Definitely.
Through reviews, wasn't it?
Yes.
So they replied and they were very interactive.
Yes.
And that was a great selling point for making them such a good host.
Yeah, it's worth noting on the reviews front that reviews are very important on Airbnb. Airbnb have quite a loyal following of guests booking through them, and you can review a guest, but you are also reviewed as a host, and it's great. It's actually, if you get it right, it's a really great way of interacting with your guests. So make sure that you get as many reviews as possible by encouraging people to leave reviews, and also reply to those reviews and interact with people. It's also worth touching upon as well that when you first list on Airbnb, you get a kind of leeway of 30 days where you will appear quite high up the search results. This is in order to help you get your property booked and then subsequently reviewed, because it's the bookings and the reviews and how fast you reply to inquiries which will have an impact on how high up the search results you will appear. So it's within your interest to try and get those bookings through as quickly as possible in those first 30 days. And if that's something you're struggling with or have any more questions on, please contact us here at Support, or there's great articles on the Help Centre about that as well, and we can definitely help you with that.
That's good.
Great. So is there anything else you'd like to cover, Naomi?
No, I think that's everything that I thought of. Just one question about options and extras, just really quickly, is that default options will only pull through to Airbnb. So any things like booking fee that are sort of mandatory will go through, but any other sort of optional extras, such as if someone's bringing a dog, you can set them in the resolution centre in Airbnb.
Fantastic. So we have had a couple of questions come through. Lavinia has been answering questions, I know, throughout the webinar, but just to kind of answer a couple of your questions live here before we take things offline. So we've had a question come through to ask, do my short break rules and start days pull from SuperControl to Airbnb? And are the prices pulled from SuperControl onto Airbnb?
So in this property, if I go to the price planner, so the short breaks rules would be applying. So for example, on a Monday there would be a minimum of 2 days.
Yeah.
So these would pull straight through to Airbnb to allow for guests to book a minimum stay of two days.
Okay, so whatever I set in my price planner, that's going to pull through to Airbnb.
On the short breaks.
On the short breaks, yeah, that's fantastic. So our next question is, can you please increase the uplift because 10% is not enough? So uplifts it's a great function that we offer. We do offer it because our clients do like to add an uplift. One thing we would say is definitely be careful around about it. It's a great way at the moment because our LOS pricing isn't working fantastically. Like Naomi says, we're working very hard to rectify that. But at the moment, there is some discrepancies in the pricing, and you can get pricing that can look a little bit funny. It's not quite rounded. So the uplift is a great way of rounding those prices up. The uplift you can also use to kind of cover the commission costs. Now this is something you have to be quite careful about because the channels, not just Airbnb but across the board, do look for price parity. So that is a kind of pricing that's sort of set across the board. It is something that can count against you in search results. It is something that they check. And it can be something you can either outprice yourself. So if you uplift too high and you're in search results with other people, it can be quite apparent if your pricing is too high. So you don't want to outprice yourself out of the market. The other thing is worth kind of thinking about as well is if you've uplifted your prices by a set amount on Airbnb and you're still getting bookings through, it might be worth having a little look at your actual prices and seeing if maybe you could uplift them across the board, because it could be that you could get a bit more money for your bookings. And, you know, I don't think anybody would complain about that, but that's definitely a bigger conversation and one that we're more than happy to talk to you about. So I think we've got time for one more question. Can you connect to upfront reviews for Airbnb? So the answer for this one actually is no. So Airbnb have their own verified review system. So upfront reviews, unlike some of the other channels, upfront reviews does not pull through. So if you have a booking through Airbnb, I would say don't encourage them to review on upfront reviews, encourage them to review through the Airbnb system. Now Airbnb will do that because they will send them an email to say please leave a review, and reviews on the Airbnb system is very important, and they do have a loyal following of people who book, so you are more likely to see reviews on Airbnb. It's hugely important. It's the thing that counts towards most of your search results kind of scores. So even though you do have upfront reviews set up, you don't want to kind of have 2 reviews going to a guest and then they review on the wrong one, and then that doesn't do you any favors on Airbnb. So upfront reviews does not go through to Airbnb, but the reason for that is because they have their own review system. So just be careful round about that. But again, if that is something you have a problem with and you'd like to know more, please contact us here at Support.
Great. So I think that's everything for today.
I think so, yes.
So thank you very much for joining us, and A recording of this webinar will be up on the website very soon,
Yes.
and then you can have a look through it from there. But in the meantime, any questions, just give us a call in support or pop a ticket in for us.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.